Here we go. It's week 16. It's Fantasy Football Today Express. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Dave Richard. We got you covered. It's the Sunday of the semifinals and a lot to get to before you finalize those lineups. We had some fun action on Saturday, and we'll get you everything you need to know for those lineups for Sunday. Dave, let's start with the situation in Cleveland where we got Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting at quarterback. We got Jerome Ford starting at running back. Cedric Tillman not expected to play with the concussion. We don't know the update yet on David Njoku. Take me through the passing game for Cleveland with the backup quarterback. Jameis Winston, as of now, is going to be the emergency third quarterback, so we don't even have the option of him playing if DTR struggles.
So if Njoku plays, I will be good with Njoku. I think he'll be a top, 8-ish fantasy tight end, maybe a little bit higher. Because the one thing I know about Dorian Thompson-Robinson is that when he throws 10 or more yards downfield, there's like a third of a chance that pass gets completed. Yeah, a third of a chance. The data reflects that. But when it's a short throw, and I'm sure the Browns are going to encourage him, take those short throws. Well, that's what Njoku's been doing all along, even with Jameis Winston. So I think he'd have a shot to lead the team in targets, if you ask me, if he plays. If he plays, I'm going to downgrade Jerry Jeudy even more. Judy's no better than a number 3 receiver, even in full PPR. I'll like him a little bit better if Njoku sits out. But if Njoku plays, that's a competitor for targets in that short area. And so I might move Jeudy out of my number 3 receiver range and be a number 4. Elijah Moore, I've lost all faith and trust in. So he's out as well. And Jerome Ford, same guy, low end number 2, high end number 3 type of fantasy running back. He'll probably get you 12 PPR points.
We're most excited about Jerome Ford of the Browns as they take on the Bengals. Again, Nick Chubb is on IR dealing with that foot injury. In Tennessee, we got Mason Rudolph starting at quarterback. We'll get some quick thoughts on the passing game, but Tony Pollard is going to play. What do you think about Pollard taking on the Colts today?
Yeah, as long as it's a competitive game, Pollard will play a lot. And I think it will be a competitive game because I don't know how many points the Colts are really going to put up. The guy who I think is really going to do well in the game, who might force the game script, is going to be Jonathan Taylor. I think he ends up with the best game of all, but Pollard could have, in the neighborhood of 70 total yards, always a good shot to score. Once the Titans realize that they're behind and they need to go into full-on passing mode, that's when you'll see a lot more of Tyjae Spears. He would be at best a flex play in full PPR. Pollard in that same range, maybe a little bit higher than Jerome Ford.
We've already gotten some good numbers from a couple of pass-catching running backs this week. Javonte Williams on Thursday, Jalen Warren yesterday. So can get you in that 11 to 12 PPR point range. Again, Mason Rudolph starting at quarterback. So a little bit of an upgrade for Calvin Ridley, maybe for Nick Westbrook-Akine. You're talking about Ridley as a low-end number 3 fantasy receiver, not a must-start guy. And then Nick Westbrook is still a desperation play. I think what Dave said about Elijah Moore kind of falls in line with
sure.
Nick Westbrook.
And if I may, Jamie, for those who are desperate this morning for a tight end and you couldn't get your hands on Brenton Strange, take a peek at Chig Okonkwo and what he did last week. And Mason Rudolph does have a tendency to lean on his tight ends. He won't be the only tight end that gets action in Tennessee, but he's certainly one of those guys that might get you 10 PPR points if you're really in need for a tight end.
10 targets last week. He's got 20 targets in his last
6
game.
from Rudolph, too.
6 targets the week before and 4 targets the week before that. So he's been a little bit more involved lately, but 20 targets in his last 2 games. Let's go to New Orleans now, where Monday night Spencer Rattler is going to start. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, if you've been using him in deeper leagues, he's got an illness. He's questionable to play, so keep an eye on that. Then the big story, obviously, is Alvin Kamara not expected to play. He's listed as doubtful. What are your thoughts on Kendre Miller taking on the Packers?
Like the talent, hate the situation. The Packers' run defense has allowed just 3.7 yards per carry to running backs over their past 5 games. Kendre Miller is a good runner. He's got great vision, does have an explosive element to him. In college, he had used his hands a little bit, but in the pros, we haven't seen that yet. And there's always the chance that he gets replaced. And I think it's a very good chance that he gets replaced on passing downs, because I don't know how good his pass protection is compared to veterans in the league like Jamal Williams and others who might be on the Saints. So I'm going to rank him behind the guys that we've talked about, behind Pollard, behind Jerome Ford, certainly in PPR leagues. I think your best bet with Kendre Miller is that he somehow finds the end zone and gets about 60 yards on top of it, not expecting a huge game from him.
In his rookie season, where we know he didn't play very much, did have 11 targets, 10 catches, 117 yards. So maybe he does get a little bit more involved in the passing game than what we've seen. He has no catches so far this season. Let's go to Miami, where you got the 49ers and the Dolphins dealing with some injury situations. Isaac Guerendo has been ruled out with the hamstring injury, so Patrick Taylor expected to be the lead running back. Jalen Waddle has been ruled out with the knee injury. Tyreek Hill, however, will play. So let's start with the 49ers backfield, Dave. What do you think about Patrick Taylor taking on Miami's defense?
I don't love it. There's a ton of uncertainty there. When Kyle Shanahan talked about Patrick Taylor and his strengths, he mentioned what he does on special teams. So I'm not 100% sure that Patrick Taylor will be the every down back. But what I do know about Patrick Taylor is he does have a track record of playing on third downs. I believe he's a good pass catcher. But when we're talking about talent, there's a reason why he's fifth string. And so my guess, and it's just a guess, is that he is going to end up sharing the workload primarily with Keyshawn Vaughn, maybe a little bit of Israel Abanikanda, but it could be a mess, and it's not the best matchup. Dolphins' run defense has actually been pretty good lately and over the course of the season. So as good as the 49ers run game is, and the scheme is what we love, and the matchup, ultimately with Kyle Shanahan taking on a team coached by someone who he helped bring up in the league, I can't say that Patrick Taylor is going to be a huge winner for you. He's the type of running back that you'll probably start him over Kendre Miller in full PPR just because of his catching chops, but there is so much uncertainty there.
He's a flex at best for me, and I do think we'll see a little bit of Kyle Juszczyk as well in the passing game also.
He could be their third down back, Jamie. You're absolutely right.
And Brock Purdy earlier this year has done a good job using his legs. So we'll see what happens with the Dolphins passing game. I don't think anybody's changing anything with Jalen Waddle out. Maybe a couple more targets for Tyreek Hill and Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane. So you were starting those guys anyway.
I'm starting those guys anyway. If you're desperate at wide receiver, Malik Washington actually looked pretty good on a couple of targets last week. He's one of those guys that Tua's going to throw screens and quick slants to, and he's got great after-catch speed. I would imagine he'll see an uptick in targets as well. A lot of the guys that we're talking about, Jamie, are going to be great for DFS, by the way. Washington certainly qualifies as a cheap wide receiver that you can throw into lineups.
We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, wrap up the injuries and answer some of your questions here on Fantasy Football Today Express. All right, Dave, we'll go through these kind of rapid fire here. Tyrone Tracy expected to play. What do you think about him taking on the Falcons today?
I'm good with him because I think Drew Lock will check down to him. And so, and I'm not a big believer in this Falcons run defense either. They don't allow a lot of touchdowns, but they do allow a lot of yardage. I would be okay starting Tyrone Tracy, more of a low-end number 2 running back.
Yep, and better than Patrick Taylor, better than Kendre Miller. Just take a look at your lineup and see what you need.
Yeah.
Braylon Allen is questionable, but really the story is Breece Hall. How do you feel about Breece Hall today taking on the Rams?
I really am going to trust the Jets here. And the fact that they didn't put him on their practice report or injury report all week long suggests that he's going to be good to go. I still think he's going to share with these other running backs. But last week, he didn't even play 50% of the snaps. This week, I'm hoping he gets to like 55% of the snaps and maybe 70% of the running back workload. He's got a chance to score. He's a good number 2 running back. I think I'd start him ahead of everybody we've talked about today.
Yes, Tony Pollard's kind of questionable for me in terms of who's better, but they're in a similar situation because of the injuries. But I did move Breece Hall up, and I did take him out of start sit as the bust alert. Trey Benson's out for the Cardinals. That's good for James Conner. Jalen Coker's going to play, more of a number 3 fantasy receiver. Xavier Legette is out. Alec Pierce is out for the Colts. Cade Otton is out for the Bucs. Does that help Jalen McMillan even more?
Of course. And McMillan is a guy you were on before anybody else was. I'm very impressed with what I've seen the last couple of weeks. I don't mind him as a high-end number 3 wide receiver.
13 targets in his last 2 games, 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Good matchup against the Cowboys. And finally, Zach Ertz is expected to play, coming through the concussion protocol. What do we think about him in his second revenge game against the Eagles?
Yeah, I like him. I think that he's going to be needed in this offense. We know that the run game should struggle a little bit for Washington. Not expecting a big game from Brian Robinson. A couple of the running backs that we talked about, Pollard, Ford. I think they could be better than Brian Robinson this weekend. So Zach Ertz, short area target, could be in line for 10 plus PPR points. So he definitely makes the cut as a top 10 fantasy tight end.
Especially if the Commanders are chasing points here. And we have seen the Eagles give up some production to tight ends. Pat Freiermuth scored against them last week, for example. And Ertz did score against them in the first matchup. All right, it's time for your questions now. Let's fire through a few of these here. Thug wants to know, I'm back and forth with Kendre Miller and Garrett Wilson in the flex full PPR day.
This is easy for me, especially if it's full PPR. It's Garrett Wilson.
100%. Next question. Sleepy Beetle, Sam Laporta or Brenton Strange? Let's assume PPR, half PPR.
Yeah, if it's not PPR, it's easy for Laporta. And I think I have Laporta ranked ahead of Brenton Strange in my rankings. I don't think Brenton Strange is going to get double-digit targets like he did last week. So give me the upside with Laporta.
If Laporta had still been struggling, I would say make the pivot to Strange, but Laporta's been very hot.
I have this decision to make in one of my semifinals, actually.
Yeah, I would go Laporta if I were you as
well.
Next question. PPR, Devontae Adams or Brian Thomas Jr.?
Like Devontae Adams a lot. But Brian Thomas Jr. is top 5 for me against the Raiders. Even with Mac Jones under center, he's going to see a ton of targets. Huge upside.
Tough calls in 10-team leagues sometimes. All right, next
Yeah.
question. Jacoby Myers or Devontae Smith in non-PPR?
I'm gonna not so in full PPR. I think Jacoby's the answer. I did a little research on the Raiders passing game, and Jacoby Myers against man coverage doesn't see as many targets as he does when it's against zone coverage. And the Jaguars, for stupid reasons, I can't explain why, they've been playing a lot of man coverage all year long. I will take my chances with Devontae Smith, especially if we know Marshawn Lattimore is going to play for Washington. What if Lattimore shadows AJ Brown, makes it a tougher matchup for AJ Brown? Maybe that opens the door for more targets for Devontae Smith, but that door's already open because Dallas Goedert's out. So I'll take Devontae in non-PPR.
Yeah, easy in non-PPR. Jacoby does not score touchdowns. Devontae has scored in each of his last 2 games. Next question. Good morning, Shannon. Full PPR, 1 flex. Jerry Jeudy, Jonathan Taylor, Brian Robinson, Tyrone Tracy need to beat my husband in the playoffs. So Shannon's playing her husband.
The Tennessee Titans are without 2 of their top 3 healthy linebackers going into this game, and it might be 3 of 3. And that combined with the fact that Jonathan Taylor owes us one and owes the Colts one after I don't know why he dropped the ball before he crossed the goal line. I'm sure he didn't mean to do it, but he did it last week. It cost his team. I think he gets retribution for that. I think he has maybe his best game of the year. I would start Jonathan Taylor, even though it's full PPR.
Yep, Jonathan Taylor, easy for me. All right, we're going to do 10 more names only. We're going to go through these rapid fire. Here we go.
Ready.
Anthony Richardson or Caleb Williams?
I believe I have Richardson right tire.
Okay, I'll take Caleb. Geno Smith or
Mason Rudolph. I think I'll run with Rudolph.
I'd go Rudolph as well. Next one. DK Metcalf or Adam Thielen?
Thielen, especially full PPR.
I'll take Metcalf. Next question. Dalton Kincaid or Brenton Strange PPR?
This is one I'll go with Brenton Strange.
Strange as well. Next one. Brock Purdy or Jaden Daniels?
Daniels.
Yep. David Njoku or Jerome Ford PPR?
Njoku.
All right, you have the opportunity to make that decision because you'll find out if Njoku's playing. I'll take Jerome Ford. Next one. Jared Goff or Kyler Murray?
Close. I believe they're back-to-back in my rankings. I have Goff 1 spot higher.
I will take Kyler in all formats. I'm sure Dave would take Kyler in 4 points for passing touchdowns. Next one. Brian Robinson Jr. or Ken Walker PPR?
Walker.
Agreed. Next one. Romeo Dobbs or Jalen McMillan PPR?
McMillan.
Thomas, well, I don't know. I'm not counting, so you tell me when we're done. Kyron Williams or Chuba
We'll just do this all morning. Who is it? Kyron Williams or who, Jamie?
Chuba.
I will take Kyron over Chuba.
All right, Kyron over Chuba. I would agree. Next one. Or is that we're done? No, one more. All right. Jordan Love or Matthew Stafford? Last one we'll do.
Stafford
as well. Jordan Love could have a huge game, but I don't think they want him to. Not that they don't want him to have a huge game. They just don't need him to have a huge game because I think we'll see a lot of Josh Jacobs, little offense for the Saints, and should be an easy win for the Packers if they do what they do. And the Saints offense looks the way it did the last time Spencer Rattler starts. All right, we're going to do this again at 11:30 a.m. Eastern right here on Fantasy Football Today. You can also check out CBS Sports HQ at 10 a.m. for a little preview of the Week 16 action as well from a gambling perspective, fantasy perspective, NFL perspective. We have you covered all day today on CBS Sports. For Dave Richard, I'm Jamie Eisenberg and Thomas Schaefer as well. Thanks for watching Fantasy Football Today.
Good luck.